Okay, here's our preference again. And now I'm going to talk about default song. And you see here, when I open up Reason, I can have an empty rack, it's default open, or a built-in rack, which is a preset built-in, or a custom setup when I start. Or I can open with the last song that I was working on startup. Now, here's how it works. I can go to here, click back here on the rack, and close the session out, and open new. I have a totally empty rack right here. All we see is our sampling input and our hardware interface. Let's close this. I can go to built-in, new, and I have a built-in setup. We've added our big meter, we got our mastering here, and we have our mixer right here. What I can also do, I can say, well, look, I want to add something to this. I want to go right back here and go to create. I want to add Thor. Next, let's see, what else I want to add? Let me turn the sequencer off a little bit. Let's move that down. I want to add subtractor. I want to add Dr. Octo. And maybe a Kong drum. So I've got more interact. Now I'm going to call this a startup. So I'm going to say here, we're going to save. And we'll save as. It's going to save in my Reason Songs folder. I'm going to call this startup 2. That's in there. Now, I can go back here to Preferences. I can choose a custom startup. I'll select 2. That's it. And when it starts up, it'll do 2. If I can do 2 or 1, I'll do 2. And that's how we do it. Let me start Preferences again. Now, I want to talk about the CPU usage limit. Now, Reason is a pretty powerful program. You know, you can put a lot of devices in, and if you have enough in there, it's pretty light on processing. But the more devices you pull in, the more power it consumes. So normally I start up here with about 80%. If I need more, I'll add more. You can go up to 95, or have none. That's a limit. But in this case, it's 80% because my machine's fully maxed out. Here. And let's go back to it right here in Preferences. And that option here is Load Default Sound in New Device. So when this is activated and you create a new device, the default patch will be loaded. So for example, I go here, if nothing's in here, I'm going to go here and I want to create a new device. I'm going to go here and put Subtractor in and turn that down. I can see this is loaded the bass guitar. Now if I go back to Preferences again, and here I'm in Preferences, and I say, okay, load default sound in new device. I do that, and I turn it off, and now I go back and I say, I'm going to undo this. There was that device there. And I go back and bring it in again. It comes up with nothing, just initial patch. There's nothing in here at all. And the problem with that is that it didn't seek out the sound. It's not looking in the library automatically. So what happens is when you do have that selected here in your preferences, and we do select this low default sound in new device, it already sets up the device to look for the default patch and to find the other patches for that one single device. That's the best way to have it. So make sure you have that selected in your preference menu. So the next thing I want to talk about here is the triggering notes while editing. And here we can trigger these notes. This is important because if it's not selected, then when we sit up here and we're grabbing notes and transposing them up and down, well, we do this manually, of course, well, the note sound won't be heard, so you can't tell what note you're actually transposing it to. Now, it probably sounds confusing. Let's do this, actually. Let's go down here. We're going to go to the grand piano right here, right? And I'm going to write a note in here. Let's get this little pencil in here. It's my note, right? So I'll get a little grabber here, a little cursor, move it. Right? So If I go back to preferences, pull this back up, and this is not selected, and we go here up and down, we hear nothing at all. So I guess you get the point. You want to make sure you hear something. If you're going to move a note, you want to know what note you're moving it to. And in order to do that, we want to make sure that the trigger notes while editing is left on. Next we have here use multi-core rendering. Now if your computer has multiple cores in it, like a dual core or a quad core computer, then Reason fully supports multi-core audio rendering. Take full advantage of this. All you have to do is go here to select use audio core rendering, and the software will take advantage of that fact. And below here we have self-contained samples when loading from a disk. Now when this is activated, any samples you load into a sampler device from the disk will automatically become self-contained and saved together with the rest of the song data when you save that song. So I select that in case I bring samples in. I make sure they're self-contained. I want to make sure they're going to be in this one song, and there's no need for me to search out for that sample again.